Our final guest in this sort of first half, and we're really pushed for time, so we're getting through some amazing guests, I'm sure you'll agree. A couple of different hats, actually, for Laura, at least. She is the Senior Policy Advisor to the US CTO, Chief Technology Officer, but she also co-founded Code 2040, and if you don't know it already, you should definitely have a look at it. It creates access, awareness, and opportunities for the top Black and Latinx engineering talent to ensure their leadership in the innovation economy. A line that I read about Laura, which really resonated, and I think it will with you. She's excited about for-profits with a conscience and non-profits with a business model. So welcome to Silicon Valley Comes to the UK, Laura Whitemanpouse.
I'm so excited to be here, and I've already been so inspired by the last couple talks. I also got off a plane from San Francisco a few hours ago, but now I feel like I've gotten all my energy back, so this is great. I was asked to talk about the future of EdTech, education technology, which is something that I am really fascinated by. But there's a lot of components to education technology, sort of the intersection between education and tech, and what we mean when we talk about that can mean a lot of different things. Everything from how we teach computer science in our schools and in our after-school programs to how we build tech solutions that support our teachers and our educators to how we expand access to education through things like e-learning and MOOCs. But given that November is actually National Entrepreneurship Month in the US, and we're a room full of entrepreneurs, I'm going to focus on the intersection of education, technology, and entrepreneurship, and specifically how we can create and support more tech entrepreneurs. But first, I want to just take a moment to say why this is important. It probably feels intuitive to a bunch of us in the room, but there are actually a couple really important reasons why this needs to be a key focus over the next 10 years. The first is around economic health. The Kauffman Foundation recently released their latest data, which shows that net job growth comes from startup companies, and actually about 20% of gross job creation in the US is coming from startups. So entrepreneurs are really the engine of growth when it comes to employment in the US. The second reason why this is really important is about innovation, and we've heard some incredible examples of this so far. New companies, particularly in technology, really push the boundaries of industry, and they also form brand new industries. EdTech is a great example of this. The creation of massive online open courses of MOOCs has actually created a new industry, but it's also spurred experimentation in one of our oldest industries, including things like the flipped classroom, where students spend their time watching lectures at home and then collaborating with their peers when they get to school. Tech entrepreneurship can present visions of the future that we've never even considered before, like flying cars. I want to take one of those to work, and has the potential to solve some of our biggest challenges. But I would argue that reaping the benefits of this in the next 10 years is actually not inevitable. I think there's actually one central issue which will determine whether we actually see and can capitalize on the types of innovation that we've been hearing about, or alternately, whether tech ends up perpetuating and entrenching some of the inequities that we see in our society today. And that's who we include in creating the jobs and solving the problems of the future. The tech industry today in the US does not look like America. Women make up almost 50% of the US workforce and less than 20% of leadership of major tech companies. People of color make up almost 40% of the population in the US and around 20% of major tech firms. And when you drill down into specific races and ethnicities like Black and Latinx individuals, you see even greater underrepresentation. The numbers actually look worse for tech entrepreneurs. I'm wondering who here believes that men come up with 97% of good ideas? Yet men receive 97% of venture funding. When you look at race, Black and Latinx founders receive less than 1% of venture funding in the US. If you look at the intersection of race and gender, it gets even more appalling. Black women, the group of which I am a part, receive 0.2% of venture funding in the US. This is a problem today, but it's actually even more important when we think about tomorrow. And that's because the demographics of our country and, frankly, our planet are changing. Today, we've gotten away with these abysmal inclusion numbers, but the year 2040 will kick off the decade when people of color are the majority in the US. In some states, including in California, the home of Silicon Valley, the state is already majority minority. And across the US as a whole, we've already seen that tip when it comes to kids entering kindergarten. So the change is here. So if we look ahead to not just the next 10, but the next 25 years, we have a key challenge that we have to deal with. We can't afford to underemploy and underfund 75% of the population. This means we have two paths to choose from. We can work on diversifying tech, or we can work on techifying everything else. And I think both are worth exploring. So I co-founded and run an organization called Code 2040. There are a number of organizations working on diversifying tech. What we do is we believe that actually creating paths into the tech sector for Blacks and Latinxes is the best way to close the wealth and achievement gap in the US. So we run a number of programs that work on college campuses. We do internship placements with dozens of Bay Area tech companies. We actually coach those companies on how to create more inclusive cultures and how to upgrade their own management and recruiting. And we work with entrepreneurs around the country, too, to support them as they launch their first companies. Just as important as working on diversifying tech, though, is making sure that we're thinking about how we techify other industries. What might it look like if we apply tech skills and knowledge more effectively to nonprofits, government, fashion, music, activism? Do that in more robust ways. Who might we get to participate and how? Either way, whether we diversify tech or whether we techify everything else, or both, we need to look to entrepreneurs to create more jobs and solve more problems, but we need to support budding entrepreneurs with the education and exposure to what it takes to launch and run companies, particularly when they're from underrepresented backgrounds. And we need to resource our entrepreneurs as well. We need to ensure that entrepreneurs from all backgrounds have access to the capital that they need to get their companies up and running. But that's an issue that, again, doesn't affect all equally. If you look at the wealth disparity numbers in the US, the median net worth of a white family is around $100,000. The median net worth of a Black family is around $5,000. So when you start to think about who has access to the friends and family funding needed to get a company off the ground, you can see where some of these disparities start to come from. And when friends and family funding is unavailable to you, it makes it harder to grow your business and get to the point where you can look attractive to institutional investors. Which means that we need to find new ways to create more risk capital for these underrepresented populations over the next 10 years if we want to continue to see a thriving ecosystem. So it's not just about changing education or educating technologists or educating entrepreneurs, but also educating investors on how to find and evaluate ideas and companies that may come from corners of the market that they don't have as much familiarity with, and educating them on the institutional and unconscious biases that is slowing our growth and inhibiting innovation. If we're going to have a shot at building a sustainable, thriving tech sector that in 10 years drives jobs and drives creation and growth and innovation and problem solving, we have to field the whole team. We have to ensure that tech is diverse and that tech is inclusive, and that people from all backgrounds have the exposure, the mentorship, the resources that they need to launch companies and solve our biggest problems. And I think if we do that, we can be really proud of what we've built in 10 years. Thank you.